Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Your Longevity Blueprint podcast. Today I have back on the show Aimee Carlson. She was one of my first guests back in episode 10, where we discussed 5 pillars of a toxin-free lifestyle. She's the host of the Toxin Terminator podcast, a best-selling author and featured expert guest on numerous podcasts and summits. Aimee has spent the last 7 years removing hidden toxins from her own home to be free of chronic disease and has helped hundreds do the same. Through her podcast, she has had access to some of the top doctors, healers, experts, and industry leaders in the natural health and wellness field. Aimee's passion is giving back to those who are still suffering, getting no relief from traditional medicine, and ready to take control by detoxing and cleansing their health and environment. Now, since the time that I interviewed her, she has joined with Naomi Damask, creating a Facebook group called Transforming Women's Health, which I'm going to let them share a little bit about. I was able to speak to their group last October 2020 for Breast Cancer Awareness Month on estrogen metabolism testing. So let me tell you a little bit about Naomi here. So Naomi is a certified wellness coach, wellness entrepreneur in the epigenetic, biohacking, and nutrigenomic sector of the wellness industry. She's the founder of the Vitamin C Party, a party that everybody needs to attend as it focuses on some of the most important aspects of wellness: community, connection, and conversation. Naomi's mission is to educate women around how to live a preventative lifestyle. She is now co-leading the group I mentioned, Transforming Women's Health. Each month, she brings together an expert wellness speaker to address some of the most important information around women's health. She's also the co-host of the weekly podcast Wellness Wednesday worldwide and is regularly featured on many podcasts. She's a mom to 2 active teenage daughters, serves on nonprofit boards, and enjoys living an active lifestyle of yoga, hiking, paddleboarding, and downhill skiing. So welcome to the show, Aimee and Naomi.
We're happy to be here. Anytime we can talk about women's health and helping women who might be struggling, that's a good day for me.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited, Stephanie, just because I know these conversations are so important and people are really thirsty for this knowledge right now.
I totally agree. So as your listeners likely remember, chapter 5 of my book, Your Longevity Blueprint, is all about toxins. So I'm going to remind you here, within that blueprint analogy, I'm comparing our laundry room to the gallbladder. I'm comparing the laundry room in the home to the gallbladder and liver in our bodies. You need a great washer and dryer in your home, as well as soap to do the good job of cleaning your clothes, cleaning up that dirty laundry so the pile doesn't keep burdening you and keep building up, right? The same is true for our bodies. Throughout our lifetime, we accumulate a large burden of toxins that can cause chronic disease. And today we're going to talk more about why that happens. Now, in March 2020, I launched 5 back-to-back episodes, specifically with detox topics, which you may have listened to, on liver cleansing, prolonged fasting, detoxing the home, infrared sauna use, and castor oil packs. So if those topics interest you, and after listening today, if you want to know more about detoxing, please go back and listen to those episodes 41 through 45. I really don't think we could ever exhaust the topic of detoxification, though. We live in this toxic world, and I have 2 women on the show today who are very passionate about educating women specifically on ways to minimize their toxic burden. So this is a forever ongoing journey. We're going to continue talking about detoxification today. So with that being said, I'm going to stop talking and let these ladies start talking. I would like for them each to share their journeys back to health, and that involved a lot of detoxification. So I'd like for each of you to kind of share your journey.
You bet. I'll go first because
Okay.
my story is pretty short, if that's okay with you. So 8 years ago, I was suffering from multiple chronic diseases. I actually was diagnosed in menopause at the age of 36, which is about 11 years sooner than the average woman gets into menopause. I had lots and lots of reproductive issues happening. And I was seeing all kinds of specialists, spending all kinds of money trying to get everything figured out. And I really was hitting roadblocks everywhere I turned. I also suffered from migraines that took my vision on the left side. I had lost that vision on the left side, daily headaches that were happening in my life. So I was kind of a mess, running through all of that stuff. And I accidentally, through essential oils, was introduced to this lifestyle of living more naturally. I put my trust and faith in the doctors and thought that, if anything, they could heal me. And they didn't. And when I learned about essential oils quite by accident, it really opened up this whole world to me of really trying to dig into the home and learning what was I using, what was the lifestyle that I had lived prior to that that was contributing to the things that I had going on in my body. And bit by bit, it all started changing around. I was able to complete my menopause journey with very little symptoms at all.
Awesome.
I got my vision back. I do not have headaches or migraines anymore. And so for me, that was huge, success in transforming my life. And quite honestly, when I got into this journey too, finding out that the products that I was using inside my home were not safe made me angry. I was in the automotive industry and I worked there for 30 years, and we are highly regulated. And so it never even crossed my mind that that other industries are not as regulated as we were. And I wanted to give it a voice. I wanted to go out and share exactly what it was that made the difference for me, and that was removing toxins from my home. So I'm grateful for this journey and grateful where it's led me.
And thus you became the toxin terminator.
Yes, you did.
Well, and when I got into this, Stephanie, people were talking about eating, people were talking about exercise, but no one was talking about toxins.
Yep, agreed. Yep. And they still, I think what we are today talking about toxins, but still 90% of conventional trained doctors that doesn't even cross their mind to discuss with patients. So
It's
That
yep.
is
So hence
exactly-
Naomi's story. So Naomi, yeah, please share your story.
Stephanie, my life changed 9 years ago when I was diagnosed with 2 invasive breast cancer tumors. And I was in my 30s, and cancer did not run necessarily in my genes per se. And that really just opened a whole new world to me, because I was like, how am I getting cancer? I was
Right.
active. I used to run marathons.
Yeah.
I was supposedly eating pretty clean. I thought I lived a healthy lifestyle. And it really made me pause to wonder and look at my life. And I say this all the time, that I take ownership of my cancer. And I don't blame myself, but I do take
That's a
ownership,
good-
because now that I know better, I can look and put all the puzzle pieces together.
right.
Mhm.
I mean, it goes all the way back to high school. I was constantly having issues with, heavy periods, cramping, all that. But the solution that was always given to me was like, well, we can put you on birth control. That was always the solution. And I was like, I don't want that. I don't want that. And it wasn't until after college, actually, that I did go on birth control, but that still wasn't solving my problems.
Mhm.
And, I just look at that whole journey. I had Epstein-Barr virus in high school. It's those different hidden toxins that Aimee and I, we like to talk about. It's not just one area, but what I've learned is I've seen 5 oncologists over the past 9 years, and no one, and all these other doctors that I've talked to have ever talked to me about any of the things that I'm doing in my life.
Which is so sad, and that would make me angry, like Aimee said. You
Yeah.
were angry, but you have a good attitude, Naomi. You're not angry. You're taking ownership, and you're.
I am, and and I find this is to be a blessing, because now I get to help so many women. I get to help them understand our body, and I always say it's so much more than diet and exercise. We have to look at our emotional toxins as well.
That's good.
Those
Yeah.
thoughts that we constantly are having. Those we also need to detox from, just as much as learning about our body and how our body works. And we can't just say, I'm just going to look at this area. We have to look at, like how you were using the analogy of the laundry room. We have to look at the whole house,
Right.
because it all works together.
Right.
Yep.
And we really need to heal our bodies from the inside. And that's where it really starts to make sense, is like you stop to think, oh, well, our bodies are made to detox. Like what you're saying, castor oil packs. I love using those. I talk about those all the time, all the simple things. And it's basically things that our great grandparents used to do that make sense to heal our bodies, using food as our medicine.
Yes.
And so it's a beautiful thing that God gave us, is our bodies, and we're meant to heal, but we live in a toxic soup right now. So we have to take ownership. We have to do all that we can do to fight off the toxins. That's why we need, a person like Aimee in our world to teach us all about those hidden toxins. And then I do love to talk about the detoxification pathways. I've ran a group on Facebook now for about 4 years about the lymphatic system. And the reason
Ooh,
why
yeah.
I did it was to hold myself accountable, but also to bring awareness that this is an important system in our body that really helps with our immune system. But it's everything is linked together. We can't just separate one thing. We have to look at the body as a whole. And that's why what you do as a practitioner is so important with the functional medicine side of things.
Yes.
Well, I totally agree. A lot of my guests that I've had on the podcast say, when you know better, you do better, right? So we want listeners to know better, and that's what I want to talk about today. So thank you both for sharing your stories. Let's get into why toxins are a leading contributor to disease and inflammation. So I'll let you guys decide who wants to answer what question. I'll just start asking them.
That sounds great. When it comes to toxins, this is the thing, is we're exposed to so many different toxins inside our home, outside our homes. And what happens is these toxins build up. When we do our boot camp, I do this little visual where I have I have 2 pitchers of water. And I ask my listeners, okay, tell me what you do on a daily basis. And they start rattling off. Well, I get up and I make coffee and I drop a little bit of food coloring in there because most coffee has toxins in it. And we just go about doing that. And then I say, okay, here's the clear water with nice, healthy cells. That's the healthy cells. And then once it becomes colored, that's the toxins building up inside the cells of the body. And that leads to the inflammation in the cell, and that leads to disease, right? So this is why toxins are so important. But then we talk about what are ways that we can get rid of toxins. And so we start scooping water out and we add more clear, fresh water in there.
Dilute. Yeah, the solution to pollution is dilution. What is that what they say? Yeah.
Right. But it never gets clear again.
Right.
We can lighten it, but it never gets clear. And that's what I think we're missing when we talk about toxins with most people, is that we're looking at, things in the laundry room, things in the kitchen, and which are good things, but we're not looking at the toxins that are actually building up in the cell. So when we do this exercise again, I talk to them about the 5 steps that are actually going to get rid of the toxins inside the cell. And when we do each 5 step, all of a sudden, we've got crystal clear water and nice, healthy cells. The people who have, I've taken the toxins away from my personal care products, right? But I still have hormone resistance. I still have insulin resistance. I have weight loss resistance. I can't lose all that weight. It's because we still haven't got the toxins out of the cell.
I totally agree. I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick and then we'll come back.
Please.
But I have to say this because this episode will launch after I launch a lot of episodes with OB-GYNs. I've interviewed, 6 to 10 different OB-GYNs who are all conventionally trained. And now they're practicing more functional medicine. And many of them say, similar to my practice, they see women come in with weight loss resistance, right? And yes, we can give them bioidentical natural hormones, right? We can optimize their hormones. That doesn't guarantee everyone's going to lose weight. So a lot of those women, when they hit menopause, right, they're doing nothing different other than their toxic burden has continued to grow, that they cannot lose weight. And so a lot of women don't want to hear it because they just want to come in and get a prescription for, natural hormone replacement therapy. And there's a time and place for that. I prescribe a lot of that, but they don't want to hear that they're going to have to make some changes to get rid of the toxins so they can lose the weight. So I just wanted to, and all of these OB-GYNs had this overwhelming consensus. They all agreed. They all told me the same thing, that they think toxins are a huge contributor to weight gain in that population.
Right.
Well, we also know that it's actually most genes, for me, it's not cancer isn't the driver, the genes, it's actually lifestyle and environmental. And so that goes back to the toxins that we're exposed to.
Right.
And some of them we can't control, some of them we can control. So I always say we got to do what we can control in the situation. And the ones that we can't control, all right, well, then we need to make sure our body is really equipped to handle it. What we're saying, repairing the cell membrane, getting into that cell and learning about methylation. I just actually did a talk today, and that's what we're talking about tonight on our boot camp is the methylation of the cells and all those fun scientific things that we learned back in 8th grade that we never thought we'd really need to know about, right?
Right.
We forgot.
Here's the thing too. Your question was about why are toxins the leading driver? And I want our audience to understand, and maybe they've heard these numbers before, but since World War II, over 86,000 chemicals have been introduced into production in our world. And every single year, 15,000 more get added in. So the toxic load,
Yikes.
it just
Yeah.
keeps getting bigger and bigger. And here's the scary part of this is that only 10 have actually been tested for neurotoxicity to our bodies. And there are 0 tests that have been done that, like, if you use shampoo and body wash, what are those ingredients going to do in
Right.
conjunction with each other?
We're a big soupy experiment. Yeah. Big,
Right.
a toxic soup experiment. So tell us, how would we know if we've been exposed to toxins? Clearly, with the statistics you just shared, we are, but can you give us some examples and maybe things that you found through both of your journeys where your
Well,
exposures lied?
definitely, there's different signs. Our bodies are always giving us clue, like brain fog, what's going on with your skin. A lot of times that was me. Like, I knew something was happening because I was having acne, and I really didn't have acne as, a teenager. And also as an adult,
In your
I'm
30s. Yeah.
experiencing more acne. It's just the headaches for me was a big thing. I suffered
Yeah.
from migraines.
Yep.
And it's all clues that our
Yep.
bodies are giving us that we have an overload. Our bucket is overflowing in our body.
Right. Digestive issues. Some of the very first symptoms of toxic burden on the body is a change in body odor. That is one of the very first clues that's going on with your body. So if you've got a change in body odor, even your feces, if your feces has a change in body odor, there's something going on and we need to start paying attention. Our body kind of nudges us. It gives us that little tap, tap, tap. Hey, pay attention to me. And if we don't listen, these symptoms that Naomi listed out and things like digestive issues as well, they morph into disease. Autoimmune diseases, they morph into diabetes, they morph into
Heart
obesity,
disease. Yeah. Dementia.
heart disease, stroke, and cancer. So when are we going to pay attention to the signals the body's giving us?
A lot of people ignore them and they want the pill for the ill,
They want
until the pills no longer work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an easier solution. And that was the whole thing, is when I was having the migraines, and I went to go see a doctor, his solution was, first of all, he just told me, lady, you're stressed. I ran my own business. I was a mom, of a new baby, a toddler. My husband was in grad school, plus he traveled internationally for his business. And he just looked at me and was like, you're stressed. Here's a script, take some drugs. And I was like, no, I don't do that. But like, what's going on? Never once did I connect the dots, because I went to the doctor, Stephanie, for solutions.
Right.
And that's when I realized afterwards that I'm like, I need to use my story to educate people that you also have to be your own advocate.
Right.
And really understand, like, I'm having migraines. Well, linking them back now, they were hormonal.
Right.
And it was because I was estrogen positive.
So frustrating again to think about at the time, but so glad you are where you are now.
Yes.
And we want to hear the end of your story eventually through this podcast, your good news. But let's go back to some toxins then. So what are some important toxins that the listeners should know that we really should be concentrating on removing from our lives?
Well, we like to think that there's kind of the 4 amigos, or the 4 worst offenders of toxins. So we've got mold, is a big one. That a lot of people don't realize all the different areas of exposure that we have for mold. We have heavy metals. And we talk about heavy metal. Well, we'll get into that. We've got heavy metals, we have mold, we have hidden infections. And we'll talk more about those. And then we have general toxicity. And this is your environmental toxins, the things that you're using inside the home.
Sure. So personal care products, and then also cleaning products, whatnot.
Right. And cookware.
Cookware is a big
EMF, inside the home, there's all kinds of, it could be building materials. It could be, all the VOCs that happen inside that home. So there's lots of different toxins. And of course, we don't want to be overwhelming, and we don't want people to think, oh my gosh, I can't live inside my home. There's certainly things that we can do, and we just start somewhere. You know,
Yep.
Naomi likes to say it's all those little 1% that are going to add up to 100%, right?
It does.
yeah.
And like Aimee was saying, we will start to do better by, buying organic foods. But then I'll watch people still cook their foods either in the microwave or storing them with plastic and not in glass, or cooking with Teflon versus like, okay, well, those are all chemicals.
Right.
What are we doing? Heating our food up in the microwave, what are we really doing to that food? Are we even actually killing off the bacteria? Because there is going to be some bacteria in your foods.
Right.
And so
That's
it's all
okay.
those
That's
little
okay. Yeah.
things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We want.
Yeah. Our body needs actually,
Yes.
when we're in a good homeostasis, we can fight off those
Right.
bacteria. But it's like, what can we do? What can we control? And we're not saying go do everything at once, but it's like, all right, you ran out of
Laundry soap.
Let's replace it
Right.
with something, a better choice.
Just make the small steps. And like you said, they certainly add up. So I have to ask here, what's your favorite cookware? Or what's your favorite swap you've made in the kitchen? Like you can drop some brands here.
Okay. So I know for me, there's two things that I have done. Three things that are like big for me. Number one, I use stainless steel cookware. I don't use anything with the nonstick coating on it. And actually, I have stainless steel cookware that is probably 50 years old. It's been around a long, long time, and it's royal prestige. I think they call it something else now, and it lasts forever. Secondly, I use zero plastic. So a couple of the things that I have done is I use glass.
What about
mason
plastic lids? Do you have plastic lids on your?
Some of them do have plastic lids, they snap onto the base, but I use a lot of mason jars too. So there's no plastic involved with that at all. Some products I'll store in stainless steel containers, especially when you've got little ones, you've got little Williams. So little stainless steel containers would be great. And then the other thing too is I use reusable silicone bags. Rather than the plastic Ziploc bags, these are, you wash them and reuse them.
Good tips. Stasher bags, or what are those? What's that brand? Stasher bag?
Yeah, Stasher or Stasher? Yeah, I know what you're referring to.
Right. I got mine are Cuisinart. Is the brand. Yep.
I've gifted some of those to the staff in past years for Christmas because I did find them useful, and I want them to make these saved swaps as well.
Yes.
And my son is now, well, by the time this episode airs, he will have been in school for a while, but he's just kind of preparing to go to school. And so I thought, okay, I got to find him a non-toxic lunchbox. And a lot of my friends have these Planet boxes. They're, I think they're stainless steel.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, my husband's like, this looks kind of weird. This is kind of funky looking. But I said, he's not going with the plastic one. I can tell you that. So I ordered this little lunchbox, and it does have little stainless steel containers inside for his dips or whatnot. So, I have to now be thinking of what can I do for my son so that he from the beginning can start with, a low toxic burden, and hopefully his won't accumulate at the rate mine did. So those are great tips. I love those. I agree with those. Naomi, you probably we're going to say the same thing. You have any?
I was going to say, I use similar, like my stainless steel pots and pans, I actually got from my mom. So use those. I use no nonstick. Cast iron. I cook a lot on cast iron as well. Glass. That was the other thing I replaced. For the most part, I have all glass. My husband still likes his, once in a while having some plastic still there. And I'm like, fine. But then for my girls, similar to you, Stephanie, I went ahead and there's a line, it's an online website called Mighty Nest.
Yeah, you told me about that.
Place.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's where I went and got all like the stainless steel reusable containers, and they weren't cheap. I will say that, but guess what? My daughters now, both of them are about to be in high school, and I've had them since preschool. Yeah. So it was a good investment. And then I have reusable, a lot of them, I have reusable cloth bags as well that I use for their food. Some of them have they're a French brand. So they have more of almost like a beeswax lining in the inside of them as well.
Yeah.
I use those. We use reusable water bottles. I will save glass jars. I use a lot of mason jars as well. That's where I tell people you don't have to spend the money. If you're buying even spaghetti jars or something that's in a glass jar,
keep
save
the jar.
those jars.
Right. Yeah. Mayonnaise jars.
Yes. Yep. We have so many choices now. I will use, I love kombucha. So if I buy a kombucha bottle, I will reuse those, and I now use those to drink out of. I'll use it to make homemade salad dressings in them.
Yeah.
So just, I'm big about repurposing.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like my generation, my grandma saved everything, right? She was always repurposing something.
Right.
And my generation
Right.
hasn't always done that. We just throw away and buy new. No, we need to be thinking of repurposing things. So I love that. So what are the specific tests that you recommend? And I may chime in here with my opinion on some of these too. And tell me, what are the specific tests that you recommend to your clients to help them evaluate their toxicities? Maybe in regards to, molds, metals, infections, the things that you were just mentioning.
So I'm a certified toxicity and detox specialist. There are a couple of tests that I can do within that scope and
Sure.
realm.
Sure.
And two of the tests that I can do are, one is called a neurotoxicity questionnaire. So
Okay.
it is simply a questionnaire, but it gives us a high level view for someone just coming in, that we can identify, do we have biotoxins? Do we have heavy metals? Do we have some general toxicity? It's divided into categories, and I can see where some areas of exposure might be and can lead to a next step.
So screening, a big comprehensive screening.
It is exactly. And then the next test that I can do is a VCS test. It's a visual contrast sensitivity test.
Yep.
And that can really identify mold, heavy metals, toxin, general toxicity exposures that we have through that contrast test that we take. From there, usually I'll go one or the other. I'm just going to pause there for a moment. We've got the garage door going up.
That's okay.
I don't know if you're picking that up or not. Anyway, it will lead me into, do they need to see somebody like you, Dr. Gray, that we need to do a mycotoxin test? There's tests that we can do via blood, via urine, via hair that, can really dive in deep when we have that snapshot view. So I always tell people, start with the least invasive first.
Yep.
And take a look at that. And then from there, it's going to guide us onto where we need to go.
I totally agree. The visual contrast sensitivity is really cheap test. I think it's like $10-15 to do online. And that's essentially looking at if your body, if the circulation to the back of your eye, where your ability to detect contrast has been compromised from biotoxin illnesses, things like Lyme and mold and whatnot. So it's a really helpful screening. I started doing a lot of those in my practice when I first started learning about this. And then patients that, through the months and years later that have retested, we see a lot of improvement. So it's really encouraging for them to see that improvement. So I totally agree. I think those are great tests. Do you want to add anything, Naomi?
I was just going to say, Dr. Gray, I just think it's so important for us to test and not be guessing, because that's the whole thing, is if you can just go ahead, you're going to end up spending more money by guessing and guessing versus just spend the money, get the testing done. I also am a big believer, and I know you offer this test, Dr. Gray, is the Dutch test.
Yep.
For myself, I look at the fact that 9 years out, I've never, ever been offered this test, suggested this test, yet my cancer was estrogen driven, that I've just am baffled. And that will tell you a lot of things. It's going to give you clues onto what's going on in your body. And then also your gut. And also if you're just wanting your homocysteine, like just to see your blood panel, normal blood panel as well. And my other last thing is to test your genetic SNPs. Because then you'll have a better understanding. If you are MTHFR, you're going to understand your methylation and why you need to be doing the certain things for yourself.
Yep.
Because that all has to go back to detoxification. And so for me, I now know I have 2 markers with MTHFR.
Sure. I want to comment on so much of what you both just said. Because to the listeners, this can be very overwhelming, because I think a lot of us are now aware, okay, I need to maybe purchase safer personal care products, right? But then we don't think, oh my gosh, I could have environmental exposures like in the air I'm breathing in my home to mold, whatnot. So there are tests that functional medicine practitioners like myself can run. I run a urine mycotoxin test on patients all the time. And many times, even patients with heavy bleeding, right? Back to Naomi, some of the challenges you have had. Sometimes heavy bleeding is from higher estrogen from certain molds, right? That can literally mimic estrogen in the body. mold can cause not just respiratory symptoms, it can cause a slew of symptoms through the entire body. But I will say brain fog is one of the top symptoms of mold. A lot of my patients who come to me taking Adderall or taking stimulants were able to discover what was, stressing the body, compromising their ability to make neurotransmitters. Many times that's been mold. And I've been able to get patients off meds like Adderall. So we can test for mold. We can test for heavy metals. I will say I commonly see high lead. I commonly see high cadmium, especially in smokers. I can tell if someone smokes just by running a nutritional evaluation on them. Sometimes we'll see aluminum. Well, there are other metals that we can see. Aluminum can come from deodorant back to personal care products. So there are a lot of just screenings, just like you're saying. You can offer patients a screening questionnaire that can then increase the suspicion of toxic burden, and then you can go to your functional medicine practitioner to have them run a more comprehensive analysis.
Absolutely.
Chapter 8 of my book is all about infection, so I talk about viruses, and I put mold and Lyme in that category as well. And then chapter 6 is all about hormones, where I talk a little bit about estrogen metabolism and the Dutch testing that Naomi's alluding to. I have an entire episode on. I don't know what episode it was, but it was last fall in October with the director of Precision Analytical, Carrie Jones. So that episode is literally called estrogen metabolism testing. And if you have had endometriosis, fibroids, cysts, breast cancer, whatnot, highly encourage you listen to that episode. So what Naomi is saying is that she has detected that she has some genetic variants that have set her up for poor estrogen methylation. We'll just say poor estrogen detoxification, right? She never knew that. Her doctors never tested her. She finally has had testing done, which has discovered some of that. And there are nutritional interventions she now has the power to, initiate that can improve her methylation, improve her detoxification of estrogen. So I couldn't agree more. Having a hormone clinic, looking at hormone metabolism in the Dutch test and looking at genetics can help providers like myself put the pieces of the puzzle together that patients are looking for. So I agree. You save money by just doing the test versus guessing, because otherwise we just don't know. Do you need B vitamins or not? Right? Let's do the test and figure that out.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when you were talking about hidden infections, you mentioned Lyme and a couple other things, but we also need to be looking at our oral health when we're talking about hidden infections. If you are somebody who has had wisdom teeth pulled, if you've had tooth extracts, if you've had root canals, it's very highly likely that you could have pockets, going on, that bacteria has developed inside there, has gotten into the bloodstream, and this is what we call a hidden infection. And many times they can take up to 20 plus years to really surface within the body. So, and the testing that can be done with this is really just a good oral dental exam. Going to your dentist and having them do a good look inside the mouth to be able to see what is happening inside the mouth. But that is a really big source of a lot of hidden infections, is our mouth.
So I totally agree. So what she's saying is a lot of bacteria can get trapped, and you can have what's called a cavitation. And I will say, I would highly encourage you to see a holistic environmental dentist who is more trained in detecting these sort of issues, because there are a lot of times, just like Naomi, how you went to your doctor and, they couldn't offer you much other than birth control. A lot of patients go to their dentist and they're left saying, you're fine, everything's fine. They're not trained as a detective to look for these problems. So I do think, I agree. I send patients to dentists who use ozone to really totally clean out the mouth, get rid of those cavitations. So you have a good point there, which also made me want to mention to the listeners, another hidden infection is yeast. When you were talking about the oral cavity, I had a patient yesterday who came in with extreme bloating. She's been to, see her GI several times. They've scoped her every possible way, recommended every medication in the book. And all I had to do was look at her tongue to tell her she was yeasty. I mean, she had a big white furry tongue, right? That's not normal. So all the antibiotics she had taken for acne for various reasons likely had led to this yeast. I'm sure I've seen her once. I'm sure that's only part of, my discovery with her, on her journey to health. But I could just tell by looking at her tongue that her gut health was not optimal based on her oral health. So if your doctor's never looked in your mouth and never commented on anything, find a doctor that's gonna do a more thorough physical examination on you.
Right. And look at your silver fillings. If you still have silver fillings inside your mouth, get them out.
Agreed.
You know, that mercury toxicity that's happening inside your mouth is really affecting the body in many, many different ways. They did a study in Germany where they had 17,000 people with silver fillings, and they tested their saliva. They had them not chew at all and tested how much mercury was in their saliva. Then they had them chew and tested the mercury levels in their saliva. Then they had them chew gum. Okay.
This is eye-opening.
And test the mercury level. So the FDA says a safe mercury level is like 0.4 micro, is it mcgs? It's micrograms per day of exposure is what you can have at a safe level. Just not even chewing, it was 11.4 micrograms. When they chewed, it was 38 point something, 38.9, I believe. And then when they were chewing gum repeatedly over and over again, that level, those levels went anywhere from 10 times to 100 times higher than the 38.9.
Wow. So essentially,
yeah.
you're exposing yourself to mercury vapors with every single chew.
Chew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not even just having them in your mouth, but chewing made it worse. Yeah. Not
And
good.
the other thing is, dentists will right now put sealants on your teeth, especially at kids. They'll be like, oh, they're starting to form a cavity. Let's put a sealant on it. That is also a big no-no. Like, it's literally trapping that in. It's also, a lot of those sealants are made with BPA. So it's now also another toxin putting into your mouth. And I know for a fact I need to go do a bunch of dental work. I haven't found a holistic dentist, but I have a root canal, and it just happens to be on the same side as where both my breast tumors were.
Interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
There's a website, and we can share it if you don't have for the show notes. There's websites where you can find holistic dentists.
Yes, absolutely. I interviewed one. I have another one coming on the show.
Okay,
And so,
perfect.
yes, if you just Google, I can't remember what the association of it's something like environmental.
There is the International Academy of Oral Medicine.
International Academy of Oral Medicine. Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you so much. All right, I'll bring us back to this question. We're having fun here. So tell us what the detox funnel is. Is this something that you kind of made up? Tell us about the detox funnel.
No, the detoxification like pathway and funnels. There's companies out there that are talking about it more and more now that are sort of specializing in this area, but we really have to look at the different layers, and really you want to first basically make sure the bottom of the funnel is functioning properly, which would be your colon.
Makes sense.
So
we need to make sure eliminate toxins. Yes.
Yes. And if that's not working, if you start trying to work on something else, Dr. Gray, it's not going to make a difference. We have to be eliminating there, and then going to the next layer, which is going to be the bile, the liver, the kidneys, addressing the skin, addressing those layers of the detoxification pathways, and making sure, like we're saying, how the liver, that is so important. And the liver right now is our major toxin or detoxification organ, yet it's being taxed nonstop. They're saying the fatty liver disease, I think it's by like 2025, it's going to be like the number one disease that's out there. Yikes. And it's not associated with alcohol.
Right.
It's literally because we are so full of toxins, and we're not helping our bodies lighten the toxin load. We're
and
not
the more
getting rid of the
toxins we're
toxins out of our
exposed to,
body.
the more nutrients we need to help us detox from the toxins.
Exactly.
More
So it's
deliberate
this
stress.
vicious cycle. It's a cycle that we're not getting off of, and we just keep spinning around. So then the next layer in the funnel is going to be the lymphatic system, and addressing the lymphatic system and making sure that we are sweating every day. I know you talk a lot about using a sauna. I think I saw you last night posting something about your sauna, Dr. Gray. That is a great way to get, toxins out of our bodies, is through our sweating. We can do, like I like to do my rebounder, jumping on a little mini trampoline or bouncing up and down. You can sit on a big yoga ball to bounce. You can jump rope, but it's that up down motion, because our lymphatic system is not associated with an organ. So we actually physically have to, like a pumping organ, we actually have to physically move our lymphatic system. Dry brushing is another great way to move it. Hot, cold showers are an excellent way as well to help the lymphatic system move. And the lymphatic system is our sewer system. It's there to take out the garbage in our body. And then they've discovered that the brain actually has its own set of lymphatic system, the lymphatic system.
Yep.
And that's why sleep is so important, because that is when that part of your body is actually into detox, is during the sleep process.
Totally agree.
And then on the next layer after that, we have the cells and the tissues.
Love that.
So it's just all the different layers of our detoxification pathways in our body, and looking at all of them and how they all work together, but making sure that we're clearing them out in order. So that way we can eliminate the toxins properly.
And again, most conventional docs don't talk about any of this with their patients.
Oh no, we talk about we talk about poop all the time, and and people are like, what? I'm like, it tells you so much, I'm like, my teenage daughters die when they see my social media because they're like, Mom, can you please not post stuff like that? And I'm like, listen, your friends someday are going to come back and be like, oh,
Your
what?
mom
Mrs.
knew
Damask
this.
used to post stuff. Yeah. And I will tell the girls, it tells you clues. It tells you so much. And we, when was the last time that you went to a doctor that they asked you any of those questions?
Right.
Like, how is your stool? What do your feces look like? I mean, we talk about it when we have babies. We go through these birthing classes and they teach you to look at the stools then. But as adults, we are like, ooh, I don't want to talk about this, but it's natural. Everyone poos. Yeah.
You poop or you die. Like you literally have to poop. I want to go back to the hot cold showers. Do you do those, Naomi? Is that something that can you talk a little bit about that to our listeners?
I do.
Or Aimee, yeah.
So the hot cold showers are really great because they're basically going to stimulate your blood vessels, and then you're going to you're opening and closing things. And by ending your shower in the cold shower, you're helping the lymphatic, you're helping your brain. It's like a whole immune system, the fat cells as well, the visceral fat, it helps target that as well. So if anything, that might motivate some people. I know I had a girlfriend, she's like, I don't care about anything else, but if I can lose weight by taking a cold shower, sign me up. You'll sleep better. I mean, the laundry list is long, but you stop to think about what do some of these countries, like people in Finland, they are known for doing their saunas and then jumping outside in the cold and going back and forth. The polar dips. Wim Hof right now, that gentleman, he has healed himself through so many illnesses, besides just teaching people how to breathe properly. That's the other thing, is mentally, you have to really work on your breath work when you're standing under there in a cold shower. So it's every once in a while, Dr. Gray, I'm like, oh my word, I don't want to do this. But then I also think, all right, I run a lymphatic group. And now that we're running these boot camps, I can't be telling people to do these things if I'm not willing to do it myself.
Right.
And living here, and we're both all of us are in the Midwest, especially in the dead of winter, the last thing I want to be doing is taking a cold shower. But I will tell you, I always feel so much better. It's sort of like the dry brushing. Once you start to creating a habit, and that's what all of it is. It's creating healthy habits. We all have habits, either they're good, bad habits or they're bad habits, but it's a habit. And so I now just have a habit of all right, here we go. And maybe some days it's only 30 seconds of the cold shower, but it's 30 seconds and it's so much more. And like Aimee was saying, I love to talk about those 1%. All that adds up to 100%.
Yep. Awesome. I know we're getting towards the end of our time here, but I quickly would like, if one of you is comfortable, to go over dry brushing. Could you tell I haven't had anyone talk about dry brushing on the show yet. Could you briefly just kind of tell us what your routine is for that?
So, you want me to take that?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that a lot of people don't know about dry brushing is we want to clear what is closest to our heart first, and then move out on the body. So the tendency, and I did this, Naomi did this, we started down on our feet, and we would dry brush, always moving up towards the heart, but we really want to clear all that stuff up close. So we want to start on the upper part of our arm going towards our heart, and then go down for the full strokes. And I usually do 7 strokes per area is what I do, making sure that I'm on the front of the arm, the back of the arm, under the arm. And I always start with the arms first. and the neck. I
Mhm.
do the neck, you know,
So you go
coming
down.
down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, go down. Everything is going down towards that heart, right? Then I do the stomach area and I start on one side and go up. Do you have a particular way that you like to
I
go?
do clockwise. So
Clockwise.
making the top of your clock, the top of your stomach,
Yep.
and go clockwise. So
Okay.
I do the same thing as what Aimee starts close
Mhm.
and along strokes. You don't want to go back and forth.
No.
You want to just go one direction
Yep.
up towards your heart. So moving that, and then also making sure that you're paying attention to like the inner part, almost like where your pant seam would be on your legs, making sure that we pay attention to that as well. And
Sure.
really working that. And I probably do maybe 10 strokes at a time or so. I don't get caught up.
Yeah.
And I pay attention to a lot on my armpits as well. So my armpits,
Yeah.
my neck, especially with women, I just tell people we live in a society now that we love our spandex and
Tight. Yeah.
and we
Mhm.
love our bras, and all that is doing damage to our lymphatic system.
Mhm.
So we need to, when we're at home, ditch the bra, make sure your bras do not have underwires in them as well, because that is where all of our lymph nodes are really under our armpits. They're
Yep.
there and our neck and us in our groin area.
Yep. I like looking in the summer when my patients are wearing tank tops, whatnot. I like looking to see if I can actually see their clavicle, right? If I can't,
Yeah.
and they're just all puffy here, then I can tell, okay, we need to work on the lymphatics with that patient, right? So I want to be able to see, not feel putty, but I want to be able to see those bones. So that's something, at least in the summer months, that's again kind of part of my physical examination with patients. So thank you for sharing that. So back to the detox funnel here. How can we best support all of those pathways? You clearly already shared some ways, even with dry brushing, but maybe tell us between foods and supplements, like how can we support all of those pathways in the detox funnel?
So when we talk about foods, for instance, I mean, you know, Naomi talked about the sweating, the breathing. I want to talk about breathing. Our deep breath, I've seen graphics and I haven't put it back to an actual science-based definition, but like 70% of our toxins are released through deep breath. I've seen the statistic in numerous times in numerous places. I'm not touting the validity of it, but we do release a lot through our breath. Through our lungs. So don't forget about deep breathing. And I just like to do where I breathe in for 4 seconds, I hold it up at the top for 4 seconds, and then I'm releasing for 7 seconds. And I do that maybe
the old
just
air
depends.
out. Yeah.
Make noise when you're doing it, you know, just in through the nose, hold it for 4 seconds, and then I mean, even you can give it a ha or a ho, or give it a noise when you're blowing out. But that's such good things to do, not only for releasing toxins out of the blood, but it's also releasing stress.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge attribute to releasing that stress.
I totally agree.
The body doesn't know the difference. The body doesn't know what type of stress it is.
No.
They just know it's cellular stress to our body.
Right.
So if it's emotional stress, physical stress, it's just stress to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I always talk about taking mindful breaks, because a lot of times people say, oh, I can't meditate. I don't know how to meditate. But I'm like, I bet you could take a mindful break, and I bet we can find 10 minutes a day to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my tricks is, right when you wake up in the morning, you're laying in bed. Let's just do a couple deep breathing right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a couple minutes right there. Then at lunchtime, take 5 minutes at lunchtime, do some deep breathing. I like to do a visual of breathing from the tip of my toes to the top of my head, and then blowing it all out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes people just need that visual.
Yes.
And then evening time, I also do right in bed.
Mm-hmm.
I lay on my acupressure mat and I do it then.
Another great thing when you're doing that deep breath work, just for mindfulness, is to think about, I'm breathing in love and I'm releasing anger. I'm breathing in happiness and I'm releasing sad. You know, think about what can you be, breathing life into yourself and releasing that does not serve you anymore.
That's so good.
And if you really want to get fancy, Dr. Gray, is you can start to do nostril breathing, where you literally hold one side of your nose.
Yep.
and it's supposed to help stimulate for the brain. But I also heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, I learned this from my girlfriend who was going through some fertility stuff. And it was actually her fertility doctor was telling her to start to do this, which I don't know, understand the science behind it, but she swears by it because she started doing that. And shortly after that, they did finally get pregnant. So
that's awesome. It's funny you say that. I was reaching for, it's hard for listeners, they wouldn't see this, but if you've seen me on video, I'm literally surrounded by books, like this entire side that you can't see over here. Tons of books. I'm literally just surrounded by books. I read books constantly. And all of what you're saying, I don't know if you guys have read James Nestor's book, Breath. Newer release, super good. He talks about the nostril breathing, one side and then the other. I mean, he mentions all the different types of like deep breathing exercises. Super good book. He talks a lot about the importance of seeing a holistic environmental dentist to help expand the we'll just say the maxillary, like expand your mouth, because our mouths have been kind of shrinking, which is why we have so much sinusitis and sleep apnea and whatnot. Really good book. Highly recommend you guys do that. But I was bringing that up because something Aimee said and then I forgot. When you were saying you breathe out. So you were saying, breathe in for 4, hold, and then breathe out. He talked a lot in that book about how important it is to breathe less, meaning slower, basically. We're also stressed. We're breathing in, and we're not getting it out. So shallow breathing. We literally need to stop and exhale the old, stale, nasty air. And I know that's why the exhale is usually longer than the inhale, right? We really need that long exhale. So if you're listening, just remember, long exhale, blow that old stagnant air out. Just super important. Packing so many good pearls in here, it's hard for me to remember. Keep them all straight. Okay. So any other input you have on supporting detox pathways through foods or supplements? Do you want to mention some favorite supplements you guys have taken or recommend?
For supporting, I don't know about detox and supplements. Naomi and I both work under the pretense that we want you to do things within your environment and we want you eating, letting food be thy medicine. And we understand that some people's physical condition is such that they've got to supplement until the food can take over for that. But we teach a lot about, dark leafy greens, beets, carrots, good, grass-fed, grass-finished meats, making sure that we're eating organic foods, making sure that it's whole foods. It's not anything coming out of a package or, that's got a laundry list of ingredients in it. We believe fruit, it can be very, very good for you. Strawberries, oranges, blueberries, all very, very good. Apples.
Because we really need to eat a wide variety of foods, Dr. Gray, but also we need to be looking at healthy fats.
Yes.
For our hormones and for our brain, but also lots of fiber, a good amount of fiber. That is also missing in our diet these days. And then I do, I like to use, there's a certain amount of things that I think we need. Like I use activators because I want to increase naturally production of my glutathione levels.
Right.
So I do these things. A really good omega-3, I think is really important because we need that for the cell membrane of our cells. And right now we get way too many omega-6s and the ratios of omega-6s to the omega-3s are off. Mm-hmm. And so making sure that you're doing that. And most people are not probably eating all the foods that we need to be eating to support our bodies. Right. And unfortunately our soils are depleted with the minerals. They're not, full of the rich minerals like they used to be with our great grandparents and our grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
We need the minerals. We need
making mitochondria is.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say making mitochondria is another good, the activators are good for the glutathione, but we also have to make the mitochondria so that the cells have the energy to do what they're supposed to do. And CoQ10 is a great supplement to help your body make those factories and get the fuel inside those cells.
Totally agreed. Yeah, we need fuel for our bodies to have energy. We need the fuel for the detox pathways to work. And sometimes patients need additional supplements. So we already mentioned actually foods like beets. I would say I also recommend to many patients artichokes, cilantro, garlic, onions, parsley. a lot of individuals just
course,
eat
yep.
meat and potatoes, which I'm okay with because it's gluten dairy free, right? Add a vegetable to that, you're eating pretty good. But add spices, add those sort of things that will add some flavor, right, to your food. So really try to cook with those sort of foods. And then some patients do need more supplements. They need maybe milk thistle, or they need glutathione, especially based on their genetic SNPs, right? Maybe they need to take an acetylcysteine or glutathione and whatnot. So I think a lot of the supplements can be personalized also when patients see functional medicine healthcare providers who can give them that information.
Exactly. I think the problem is people just run out and they hear, oh, I should be taking this, and then they just run to somewhere that they're picking up their toilet paper, and grabbing something off the shelf. And I always say, if you're buying your supplements where you're buying your toilet paper, that's probably a big no-no.
I'm going to use that. I like that. So why is it that some people feel worse as they're detoxing? Why does that happen?
Well, you can basically start to go through the detox overload, and sometimes you're going too fast and your body can't handle it. So it's got to be a slow progression, because you could get more headaches. And I think sometimes people end up stopping before the magic happens.
Right.
Because they feel so ill.
If your pathways, if your pathways aren't all open, making sure that we're supporting every pathway in a sequence, that will help minimize. Sometimes the toxins are just recirculating in the body because we've got those inflamed cells. They're not letting the toxins out. It's all just getting recirculated throughout the body, and you're not ever releasing those toxins. And then it can come in whatever pathway it comes in, the headaches, the digestive, system. The skin is a big one, a big visual for a lot of people is the skin. So making sure that you go in order with things, and making sure don't start anything if you're not pooping every single day, and at least once a day. If you're not doing that, then that's what you need to focus on, is getting yourself to that point first.
I agree. And that's so often neglected. And I agree. A lot of patients boycott, or they stop the detox because they feel so ill, but those are the patients who need it the most. Those are the patients who
up your water, slow it down, up your water intake, do all those things, get the sweating going on, take the cold showers, do the things, drink lemon water first thing in the morning.
And then also be eating the foods, the B vitamin rich foods are really important. We do need that for the methylation.
Right.
Yep.
So if you're
lacking
the
B
leafy
vitamins,
greens,
yep.
Yes. And if you're, a lot of these vegans and vegetarians are not getting what they need as well. So you do have to then supplement, because if you're not, there's a reason why we should be eating organ meats.
Right.
And those are really going to be beneficial for the B vitamins. And folic acid is a big no-no because it's synthetic form. And if you do have a genetic SNP, the folate receptors are going to be blocked. So eating, like you said, the dark greens are going to be helpful, but rotating, making sure you're not just eating spinach, you're not just eating kale. First of all, those can be very high in oxalates, which can be harmful to your body. But I think we become creatures of habits, Dr. Gray, that we always eat the same foods over and over again. One, either because we like it, or B, because we just think it's healthy. So we're just going to gravitate it, or it's easy. Yeah. We'll gravitate towards it versus saying, all right, you know what? I'm going to go get some dandelion greens. And most people, we've been thinking dandelions are just weeds. No, they're so good. And maybe start having, instead of a cup of coffee every morning, having a cup of dandelion root tea.
And good fatty fish, sardines, herring, trout, getting some good fatty fish are so good for the body and helping support the cell and the brain health.
You said it well. I couldn't say it better. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for coming on the show today. This was a long interview, but we packed a lot in. I always close the episodes asking my listeners their top longevity tips. So if you each have a tip, you can share it, and maybe you've already shared it, but repeat what your top longevity tip may be.
Oh boy, what's it? You know what? My big top longevity tip is going to be drink lots of water and clean Water. Think about what you're bathing in more than what you're drinking. Make sure that you're getting a good house filtration system. And if you can't do the whole house, get yourself a filter on your shower. That's going to have a huge impact. So water is big for me.
And I will say one of the best longevity tips is sleep. We
Mm.
need sleep.
Everybody says it.
We
Yes,
do.
I agree.
It's
Back to your
it's gotta
passion,
be
the
sleep. I talk a
lymphatics
lot.
and lymphatics.
Yes. Well, I talk a lot about the simple biohacks. And that is one thing is sleep is a simple biohack. Getting outside early in the morning, grounding ourselves, really truly working with our natural circadian rhythm is really beneficial. It's all these things and in using our body. Our body is going to be the one that's going to help us live a long time. But if we're abusing it, well, sorry.
So Naomi, I have to ask before I forget. So tell us the end of, not the end, there's never the end, but of your story. So you open the episode talking about your breast cancer. So cancer free now. Tell us your good news.
Yep, I will say I'm NED, so no evidence of disease. And then I've just keep taking the right steps, Dr. Gray, into helping my health. So this year I explanted. I had 2 sets of implants.
Yeah.
And I just recently explanted as well, which I feel so much better.
Yeah.
So much better that I got those
Good.
out of me. Yeah, so I'm doing well. I just keep educating myself. My next step is doing more testing so I can keep understanding my hormones and where my hormones are at. So I can also learn for myself, but then being a mom of 2 teenage daughters, I really want to make sure that I know enough about myself so I can pass on the wisdom, even though Aimee's getting to witness them firsthand, you know.
Teen girls don't like to always listen.
No, but hopefully some, at least, 5% will be
they're
going
hearing
there.
it. They're hearing it. Yeah.
I love that.
So yes, I'm doing well. So thank you.
Well, one day they're going to appreciate all that you've done for them, all the knowledge that you're passing down to them. Well, tell us both, you both tell me where listeners can find you. Tell us about your group on Facebook and what you're doing these days.
So you can go to transformingwomenshealth.com as our website. We have Instagram, Transforming Women's Health. We have a Facebook group, Transforming Women's Health. So just look up Transforming Women's Health and you'll get connected with the 2 of us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
You'll find us there.
Thank you for coming on the show today, both carving out the time to share with my listeners the importance of detoxification for overall improving our health. So I love the mission you're on. I think we see the same patients. Everybody needs this information. So thank you for your mission, sharing what you do.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.